Welcome to the final lecture for this project, in which we are going to set up the render settings correctly for rendering the animation. Now to start the render, let's make sure all the two included scene layers are selected and that the 3 render layers are checked. In the render properties, we can make sure that the render presets are set to HDTV 1080p, but you can also render 720p when you want a lower resolution, taking less time to render. Make sure the frame rate is at 30 fps so it runs smooth. Now for the start frame, we are going to check at what frame the big blue sphere comes into the camera field with the help of our preview render. Frame 430 seems to be right before the blue starts appearing. Thus we can set the start frame at 430. As shown in our previous lecture, we are going to use the render layer samples that we gave to each render layer. Let's make it to 40 for render layer 1. Then at the output, we are going to choose a location to save our frames. Of course, your file path will obviously look different. Via this icon, we create a new folder and call it Frames. Then we open the folder and give the future frames the name Frame. Blender will then save each frame separately as Frame 1, Frame 2, etc. We can press Accept. Now I am just going to save this blend file as the lecture number. Now for the output format, we are going to choose JPEG because we are going to render each frame as a picture file first. This is common practice in the animation industry. We are also going to animate the seed value. Doing this makes sure the noise on each frame are not on the same place, making our animation look better. So on frame 1 we can keyframe a seed value of 1, and on frame 1000 we can keyframe a seed value of 1000. Now you can see when scrolling through the frames that the seed value corresponds with the active frame. Now at the performance section, I will leave the settings as is since this setting is best in combination with a GPU. So now when all the settings are properly set, we can go ahead and press this button that does all the magic in Blender. On top of the render you will see more information such as frames, time and more. I know the render looks black. That is because the big blue sphere still needs to appear. Now we can check in our frames folder if the frames are actually saved there, which they are indeed. Now, in order to render all the frames in a movie file, we can open a new blend file. We can drag out a new window and set it to the video sequence editor. Then we can choose the sequence of rendered images. Since we only rendered one frame, I will choose the frames from my intro animation. We can select all the frames with the A hotkey. And we can press Add Image Strip. We can adjust the end frame to match the end of the purple strip. Then, when pressing this button, we can preview the animation. Also make sure your frame rate is at 30 fps, just like how you rendered your frames. For the output format, we can choose what I am showing, but usually what I do is to first render in AVI JPEG and then convert it in another program such as Handbrake. More information about render formats you will find in the extra written information before this lecture. Then we can choose the folder to save our animation. Then finally we can press animation. However, we see up here that we get an error message. This is because I still had border render active in the 3D viewport, which we can disable with Ctrl-Alt-B. So now we can see the frames being rendered into one movie file. So this concludes the final lecture of the Blender Logo project. I hope you enjoyed following this project and that your version of the logo looks cooler than mine. In the next project we are going interdimensional with our energy dimension project, in which I am going to teach you how to create even cooler stuff. So I thank you for watching and see you in the next project.